into order. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, those that can?
I pledge allegiance
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States
of America, to the republic, which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Kate, can you do the roll call?
Certainly. Joe Britton? Joe, are you on?
I saw him before.
Yep, I see him. I can't hear him, though. It's okay. Rachel Chalesky?
Here.
Kate Canetta here. Gladys Cooper?
Here.
Lauren Daly?
Here.
Joe DeSilva?
Present.
Catherine Hodgson?
Here.
Rich Janelli?
Here.
Kathy Molinaro?
Here.
Al Russo?
Here.
Amy Spallino?
Here.
Everyone's here tonight.
Thank you, Kate. Kate, can you go down and do the public participation? And after Kate does the reading of the public participation, if Sandy have any comments, we'll go right into the comments, Sandy.
Okay, the board welcomes public participation and asks that comments be limited to 3 minutes. The public may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Education personnel and students, nor against any person connected with the Danbury Public School System. Due to the unique nature of the COVID-19 crisis and the limitations of technology, members of the public who are Danbury residents are invited to send brief comments and questions via email in advance to dps_boe@danbury.k12.ct.us.
Thank you, Kate.
And Ms. Cooper,
Sandy?
yep, Ms. Cooper, at this time, there are no public participation comments.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on down the agenda. I need a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I will make a motion that the Board of Education approve the item on the consent calendar, Exhibit 21-09, as recommended.
Second. That was Joe, I'm sorry.
Joe DeSilva. Okay, any questions concerning the consent calendar? Seeing none, Kate, will you do the roll call for the consent calendar, please?
Certainly. Joe Britton?
Aye.
There you go, Joe.
All right. Okay.
Rachel Chalesky?
Aye.
Kate Canetta? Aye. Gladys Cooper?
Aye.
Lauren Daly?
Aye.
Thank you. Joe DeSilva?
Aye.
Catherine Hodgson?
Aye.
Rich Janelli?
Aye.
Kathy Molinaro?
Aye.
Al Russo?
Aye.
Amy Spallino?
Aye.
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you so much. And the motion has been carried. Next on the agenda is the educational staff representative reports. We have anyone here from the NEA? Aaron?
Aaron, you here?
Yeah.
I don't.
She's not here?
I don't see her on
I
here.
don't.
Okay.
Okay.
Is
No,
Dr. Zulita here?
I don't know.
Here.
Christy, yeah, Dr. Zlita's here.
No.
She's not here?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to share tonight. There aren't really enough minutes in the Board of Ed meeting to fully express the amount of work that has been done and continues to be done to not only support the hybrid model, but also the large percentage of students that remain on full distance learning. There isn't a staff member in Danbury Public Schools that hasn't gone above and beyond for their students. And make no mistake, the amount of work that has gone into the safe and successful hybrid opening and continual distance learning cannot easily be measured. And all the little things that make a big difference for a parent or a student aren't always captured or shared publicly. In an effort to shed a little light on what has been going on in the background from the administrative side, I've collected information from all three levels and compiled the highlights into 4 categories: preparation, communication, student engagement / outreach, and lessons learned or disruptive innovation. So to begin with preparation, we've started many moons ago, as you all are very well aware, in creating reopening committees. We have these committees with teachers, administrators, support staff, nurses, anybody who we could think of that might have another perspective to lend to this opening plan. So we've done this in October, and we did it again in January. We collaborated with central office and our custodial staff to prepare the classrooms for the students' return. That ranges from anything from PPE, hand sanitizers, wipes, the enormous undertaking of moving the desks so that there was appropriate physical spacing. At one point, I thought I was going to just quit this job and become a professional mover. It's great for building some muscle and getting those steps in, but it was a lot to move the enormous amount of desks that needed to be moved. Some buildings were even able to hire additional help because the enormity of their size. We prepared by setting up parents and students in Power School. This has been a huge undertaking and very well worth the time spent so that everyone has what they need at their fingertips. We organized logistically how students would enter, how they transition, how they pick up food, how they would eat the food safely, how they throw the food out, how we'd get them safely to leave the building onto the bus safely, everything safely, safely, safely. As an administrative team, we work with the tech department to develop how students were going to be able to engage in classes when there were more kids online than in person. It wasn't pretty at first. It's still not perfect, but we jumped in and we tested it ourselves. We pushed everything to the limit to see where the holes were so that we could plug those holes as best we could. We spoke with colleagues from other districts and states to see what was working for them and what to avoid. We created innumerable staff duty lists, plans to cover arrival and dismissal of students, classroom logs, sub-coverage, and most recently, starting today, how to contact trace, which rooms the child was in, which related services they received, which bus they were on, who they were sitting near. This is a very necessary and tedious and very time-consuming task that we've all jumped into. Of all of these things of preparing, having a feedback loop with staff has been personally to me of the utmost importance. As we've moved through this process, we're constantly looking at how we can improve upon what we planned. When we learn better, we do better. With respect to communication, this has been a huge ingredient in helping parents to process what's going on and plan for what is happening and what has changed. We are educating parents about the program choices, the schedules for each, the mitigation strategies in the building, what to expect when you come in the building. And we've done this through a myriad of ways: morning announcements, virtual town halls, parent meetings, breakfast with the principal. Most of these things are recorded and shared on our YouTube channels or on the school websites and through weekly updated emails. We also spent time communicating with our students. We've trained them on digital citizenship and COVID-19 protocols. And as an aside, as a person in the middle school, and I know the elementary staff has agreed, the kids have done an amazing job wearing their masks, staying socially distanced, and just being awesome little humans. With respect to student engagement and family outreach, I lost track of the number of home visits that we've done from the administrative side. Our PPS staff, who usually would do that, and administrators as well, but we asked them to not, and we've been going out to disengage students' houses. It's innumerable. We've been able to show the parents in real time, this is what your child should be doing. This is what the screen should look like. This is how you access this. For us at Rogers Park, we had students come in with their new arrivals. They've never seen Chrome. They didn't know what that little button was. We had them in a boot camp outside to teach them how to log in. Our administrators have been doing lunch bunches with kids and night events with kids to do things like serious things about discussing the world events so that we could help them process and understand how they're feeling, but also lots of fun stuff. Kahoot, I'm getting really good at Among Us. Name that tune. Even as early as yesterday, my daughter had an opportunity to do a story time with her teacher. So across all levels, administrators are reaching out and working along with teachers in connecting with kids in that personal way that we would have done in person. Another thing that we've done is extracurricular clubs. They haven't gone away. They're virtual, but they meet regularly. And this is an opportunity that many of our students have taken advantage of. They connect with other students across the grades, across the school, and they're doing this, yes, online, but they're stepping outside of that realm of all academic to connect with students about things that they like, from singing to computer coding to debating to social justice, and even a school newspaper, to name a few. We also haven't stopped helping our families because they haven't walked through the door yet, or they just started to. Before they even stepped in, we were providing them meals, not only the ones that the school and Sodexo were providing, but we also were collecting non-perishables. And at Broadview, they have a food pantry where people donate non-perishables, and then they're delivered to the families. At Rogers Park, we have a meal train that's raised over $17,000, and we've provided almost 200 food insecure families with a week's worth of fresh groceries. At the holiday, the NEA is always generous in doing their holiday bear, but many schools do their own kind of giving trees where our social workers and our school psychs and counselors know who the kids that would not have otherwise had a Christmas. Teachers and administrators were just shoveling presents their way. So we're always working to make our students feel important to us because they are. Lastly, it's our lessons learned, and what we've talked about before is disruptive innovation. It's easy to focus on the negative and look at things from a deficit lens, but this last section is on the positive that we've learned. We've thrown around the phrase disruptive innovation when you're thrown into a situation that forces you to change in a manner that may have taken years to come by. The biggest positive thing has been this exponential increase in both the teachers' and administrators' capacity to determine quality online programs and tools, as well as utilize them effectively to enhance what happens in the classroom. While the importance of that personal connection between teacher and student has been laid bare, there are many technological tools that we will continue to implement for years to come. We would have never gotten to this place if this hadn't happened. So that is a silver lining. We've also been able to do this because we've had the opportunity to do in-time, embedded, ongoing PD for teachers. It takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of preparing, and it takes a lot of repeating. And we've been able to do that. Another big win was a virtual parent meetings and conferences. It opened doors for parents that couldn't always make it to even if we had late night. They were able to take a 5-minute break from their work, maybe it was their lunch break, and come in and do on their phone a Google Meet with their child's teacher to learn about what was going on. And this was another connection in enhancing that homeschool connection. Another big win in this disruptive innovation were that students have become advocates for themselves by reaching out to ask for help and clarifying questions. They're not always waiting for their parent to do it for them. This is age appropriate, of course, but this is a key life skill that we talk about a lot. And I'm so proud of so many students that are eye-chatting me, Dr. Zlita, how do I do this? Or, hey, they're sending out emails to their counselors, to their teachers, to their administrators, and they're asking for help. So that's a key thing that's been positive coming out of it. In closing, I want to say on behalf of all the Danbury Public School administrators, a heartfelt thank you to the myriad parents who may not blast it out on social media. They may not send Sandy an email to read at the Board of Ed meeting, but they've reached out to us, administrators individually, to say thank you, to send an email complimenting what an amazing job their child's teacher has been doing, acknowledging the effort put into the planning process and the communication, sharing their gratitude for the time spent in Google Meets, helping them to navigate a new terrain. Your kind words mean the world to us. Thank you. Thank you all for letting me share with that. I hope I didn't take up too much time. Y'all know that I can talk, but I try to do it quick and concise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeLita. Thank you for bringing us such enlightened information. And we certainly appreciate everything that you do as principal of Rogers Park Middle School. And we just thank you for sharing this information with us on your first time for the invite. But thank you so very much.
You're welcome, Ms. Cooper. I look forward to sharing more.
Okay.
She wants a snack, Grandma.
Do we have any of our student representative? Or I'm sorry, does board members have anything that they would like, and a question they would like to ask Dr. DeLita before she leaves? No? We'll go down to our student
We want to double
representative.
check to see if Aaron
Jake?
joined us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aaron, have you joined us before we move on? Okay, no, I guess not. I just wanted to check, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sam. Okay. So now it's time for our student representative.
Jake?
I don't see anybody on.
I don't see any of them either.
Okay, well,
And he's playing his game. So he does not here.
Okay.
Oh, I just saw Christopher.
Good
Good evening, Board of Ed members, Cabinet, and community members. Thank you for allowing me to represent and speak on behalf of the Alternative Center for Excellence. On Tuesday, January 26th, the 11th graders at ACE were offered the opportunity to re-enter the ACE building to take the PSAT. Thanks to Diana Donato for arranging and proctoring the test. On February 1st, ACE will run a structured orientation day to deliver expectations for attendance and course schedules, behavioral norms, and social emotional learning activities. Time will also be spent going over mitigation strategies and safety procedures. Students will follow the orientation day schedule with their guidance groups to continue the process of building community as we re-enter the building in semester 2 following the hybrid model. Our orientation day will also be an opportunity for guidance teachers and guidance members to welcome our incoming students from DHS. ACE would like to publicly acknowledge and congratulate our 3 January graduates, Brian Galarza, Rachel Jackson, and Carter Stroh. Our 3 January graduates will be invited to participate in June graduation, where we look forward to hear their speeches, which will also be viewable on our Alternative Center for Excellence YouTube channel. Lastly, ACE would like to congratulate our most recent Student of the Week Award winners, Jalen Batista and Spencer Robbins. Congratulations to both of you and keep up the great work. Thank you for allowing me to share what is going on with our ACE family, and stay safe, everyone, and remain ACE strong.
Is this Chris?
Yes.
I just, he didn't, when I didn't quite hear who introduced. Thank you, Chris.
We still don't have anyone from the DHS?
I don't think Jake is here. Jake or Rebecca?
Okay.
I guess not.
Dr. Saylor, you don't have anything as far as presentation, am I correct?
No, we got stuff. That's correct.
Okay. Rachel, would you do action item A?
Sure. I move that the Board of Education approve the December 2020 operating results and analysis general funds grant projects in accordance with 21-10.
I'll second. This is Kate.
Okay. Are there any questions concerning the action item? Seeing none, Kate, would you do the roll call?
Certainly. Joe Britton?
Aye.
Rachel Chalesky?
Aye.
Kate Canetta? Aye. Gladys Cooper?
Aye.
Lauren Daly?
Aye.
Joe De Silva?
Aye.
Catherine Hodgson?
Aye.
Rich Janelli?
Aye.
Kathy Molinaro?
Aye.
Al Russo?
Aye.
Amy Spallino?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Mrs. Cooper, this is Richard Janelli. I couldn't get off of mute fast enough. Is there a way that we can just have Courtney just give a brief explanation of the information?
Madam Chairman, I could, we just did the action item. You want to discuss it now, or I'll just put it up as in my superintendent report, and I can have.
Could you do a superintendent report, please, Dr. Saylor?
Do we want to do it right now is my question?
No, if you're gonna do it later, that's fine.
Okay, I'll just do it within my report. I'll call Courtney. She could start it off if that's okay with you, with everyone.
Yes.
Okay, if Courtney, would you start?
Okay.
Would you start off the report and kind of discuss what Richard just asked, please?
Sure. Thanks, Mrs. Cooper. Thank you, everybody. Briefly, if you'll recall, in the last board meeting, we showed a deficit that's now showing imbalance. So briefly, I just wanted to let you know that's as a result, if you'll recall, of some of the items that were in the last budget presentation include items that were grant funded, and they've now been shifted over to the appropriate place in the budget. So we're showing a budget that's in balance for this year. Rich has also asked that for the next board meeting, if you'll recall, when we closed last fiscal year and opened up this fiscal year after the we received the funding for this year from the budget, the reduction from our original ask. If you'll recall, we braided funding together. And so that bottom line amount, our city amount or Board of Ed amount was about 136 million, but the total braided funding was about 145 million. So for the next board meeting, what Rich has asked if I do a full accounting of that 145. So I will be doing that for you. It is currently contained in the grants report, but to combine it so that we can show you the full braided funding as we lead into the budget season. He's also asked that we calendar the Finance Committee for next week on Tuesday to kick off discussions of the budget cycle. So I wanted to make you aware of that as well. And you'll be receiving that calendar invitation shortly. And then I also wanted to make you aware of a shortfall that we spoke about earlier with the school nutrition program. So Christy talked about all the amazing and fabulous things that they're doing to reach families, which included distributing food through the school staff directly, as well as through Sodexo. And I wanted to let you know that right now Sodexo has come up with strategies to be able to get more food out into the community. But because we've been in a fully remote model until very recently, our food count is down and we're reimbursed by the federal government on the number of meals that we distribute. And so our gap right now, year to date in revenue, is about $1 million. It's not like unlike other districts that are experiencing this. It's just that because Danbury's been a hotspot and we've been remote for so long, it's a little bit exacerbated. What Sodexo did in partnership with, Sal and myself, we talked to the lead manager in Sodexo, and they came up with a strategy to do busing food to families so that we were able to reach a lot more families over the month of December. And they've got a strategy going forward to reduce that gap. So one of the things that we're doing is getting a week's worth of shelf-stable food. And on Wednesdays, when our buses aren't operating to drive students, we're going to use those buses again to deliver a week's worth of meals to families that sign up. And that information will be forthcoming to the community shortly. In addition, we'll be operating an evening pickup for a week's worth of shelf-stable food, which will be, we'll announce the location shortly. We're just working out the logistics, but from 4 to 6 p.m., likely at Park Avenue School. And we'll continue to operate our drive-through pickup for food at DHS in Broadview from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So our goal, and we're going to monitor that, how that is reaching the community, what the needs are, and how we can assess if we can better get food out into the community as it's needed every bi-weekly, and visit our revenue numbers. So I'll look forward to reporting that regularly out to the board. That gap is going to be met with not operating budget funds, so not current year funds, but as a result of last year, I think I remember, if you recall, I mentioned that we had a reserve set up from the surplus last year of funds that weren't spent during our closure that the city set up for us of about 2.6 million. If we are not able to close that gap with all of these strategies, we'd have to take some funds from that reserve. Our goal is to not have to do that. We need that reserve for operating and for expenses for related to one-time expenses for the board. So, but we wanted to make you aware, Dr. Salas, that I talk about that and that we continue to report as the year rolls out. Kids are back in school, so they'll be eating their regular meals. So our hope is that we're able to close that gap.
Courtney, too, we kept everybody employed with the executive order, which was the right thing. Folks have been working and preparing food and doing all of that. Correct?
Yeah, and I just wanted to again thank the school lunch staff because they've just done such a tremendous job. They've been, working nonstop through the summer and all the closures. They're in our buildings every day, even on the days that are, we had a delay on Wednesday, and they were there at the schools delivering meals, and distributing meals. So I just wanted to say thank you to the school lunch staff that's been really dedicated.
Courtney, can I ask a question about food service?
Sure.
How is it? I know this is obviously a limited window because we only started going back last week. But how has it been so far with the distribution of food for the DL kids or the kids that are home on hybrid, having it only be at Broadview and Danbury High School? I'm just thinking there's got to be a lot of kids in some of our schools who don't have access to transportation, or they themselves walk to Ellsworth Avenue or walk to Park Avenue or walk to Morris Street, and we're no longer able to accommodate that. Has there been any issue with that? How are we doing with that? That was a concern I had.
Yeah, I do have to survey the community and reach out to the principals now that we've been back in for a week with elementary, 2 weeks with elementary and a week with the middle school. We see that our numbers are good at those schools, but in terms of reaching the families that might not be able to drive there, I've got to reach out to the principals and get some feedback. It's a little challenging, that balance between, even though less than 40% of our kids are in the school, it's very labor intensive, especially in the elementary schools, to continue to, because now there's all the distancing protocols, and they've still got to distribute the meals at the doors, like Christy said, all the planning that goes into that. Like you actually need a little bit more staff. All of that said, we are looking at potentially expanding to additional locations. That Park Ave, is a high, traffic place when you have a lot of walkers, and we do think that opening up in the evenings there will help, if we need to open there in the mornings as well. And if you hear feedback, please let me know.
One of the comments I did hear that I will pass on, somebody pointed out that the current distribution from 9 to 11 in the morning, if a child is on distance learning or a child is home on hybrid for their home side of their cohort, for a parent to go pick up the food between 9 and 11, either they have to leave the child home alone or they have to take the child off the computer to go pick up the food, because it's being distributed during their academic day, which a couple of parents made note of that didn't make a lot of sense. So
yeah, that's good feedback, Joe. Maybe we'll look at opening earlier. It is a little bit
or in the afternoon, maybe, when they're theoretically supposedly done.
Yeah, and
or at night.
That night site we do have, but perhaps we could expand the evening sites to reach more families. Thank you. That's good feedback.
Just an idea. Somebody had mentioned that to me. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Courtney. Are there any other questions for Courtney?
I have a budget question.
Yes.
I know we're going to talk about the schedule at the Finance Committee meeting, and I will be there. But I was kind of, and maybe I got the dates wrong. I was expecting a presentation today, and then are we voting at our next meeting?
Yeah, well, we will have to vote at the next meeting. So we're going to have the first Finance Committee on Tuesday, and we'll have as many as we need to have transparency and to have the board to have a level of comfort with the budget presentation. It is a truncated, and much shorter than we would normally expect. But yeah, we do need a vote at the next February 10th board meeting in order to meet the deadline to get it to the city by February 15th. So there's a lot of work to do between now and then. And I do apologize about the truncated time.
That's okay. And instead of a committee meeting, could then it be a workshop so that board members could ask questions? And also, I thought Al had asked about having something sent to board members so we can review it prior to meeting.
Yeah.
And will you work on doing that, Courtney?
Yes, we can. We have we've met with the cabinet twice so far and have refined our ask to a place where it's in a good shape that will be ready to share shortly. We do have a meeting on Friday, and we'll be working a bit over the weekend. So I hope, and it's my anticipation, that we'll have something that we'll be able to share Monday afternoon. If we're gonna have the Tuesday meeting, I know it doesn't give you much time. You can always feel free to reach out and call me if you have specific questions or things that you'd like us to focus on, so that I can make sure I'm included in the presentation, if you'd like.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, this is Richard. Rachel, I think your point's well taken, considering the time constraints we have, to have whatever we have going forward on the finance, so that we do it as a workshop. Because I believe it's important to have the full board have comments in there, as opposed to just be restricted to 5 people and then regurgitated, at a period of time later. So if the scheduling would be sent out as a workshop. It was a good point, Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I didn't hear what Mr. Janela stated. Does someone repeat what he said?
I said I agreed with Rachel that instead of a finance committee meeting, that'd be a workshop.
Okay, we'll have a discussion about that before we turn it into a workshop.
Well, that's fine.
Okay,
Any other
can I
questions
go to the
for
next
Courtney?
point? Can I move on or more questions?
No, before we move, Dr. Say, I didn't get the date that Courtney stated that we would have to submit the budget to the city of Danbury. Is that?
It's at the second board meeting. I don't know, that the board.
It'll be February 10th for the board vote, and it's due to the city on February 15th, Gladys. It's always due to the city on Valentine's Day, but it's the first business day following Valentine's Day, which happens to be on a Sunday this year. So it'll be Monday the 15th when it's due.
Okay, thank you so very much, Courtney.
I think too, what was said, and for the board members, it's been truncated, but at some point, we could have a workshop post before that as well to go over it. The budget's very interesting, and I'll just comment. We are trying to understand deeply the funds that are coming from the feds. I'll talk a little bit about that later in terms of how it's going to mitigate our costs. We're also trying to ascertain, we had a disparity of number of kindergartens that haven't arrived this year, and we're working on figuring out how that may impact our FTEs. So that's been a little bit difficult, and we're trying to do that. So that's coalescing now, so we'd have a budget that, could be reflective of what we need operationally. Still unknown within that would be any options we would have to do the braiding part that Courtney has been talking about, but we see that as coming from Biden's new proposal and coming to the state. So, but we're to the point where now we have a better understanding of particularly the FTEs. So I just want to comment on that. I brought Kathy is here. I'm not Kara, but the vaccine has been pretty disturbing in terms of the rollout. And I'll just comment that we were prepared, and thank Kim and her department, people putting in just about 2,000 folks that were to be entered last Monday under 1A. And late last Thursday, it was pulled off the docket, and they, quote, talking about a pause. That pause took out our teachers. Now, what has happened, some districts somehow, through their health departments, were able to circumvent the requirement and were able to vaccinate their teachers. It's been quite controversial throughout the state how that happened. This morning, we met with our legislators. We talked with Senator that we'd like to do some have a conversation with the State Department, and she's having with the Department of Health to consider those cities such as Danbury that have had high numbers of community spread and have been out, that somehow they might be able to prioritize and permit our districts to at least get into a queuing so we can load up and get in and have our folks vaccinated. And Kathy's here tonight. Kathy and Kara have set up Rogers Park. So if you give us the stuff, we can get it in the arms real quick. So I'll be doing that and writing the State Department. But that has been a dilemma for us. If we lay it out the way the state's going, I don't know, our folks may not be vaccinated until spring. And I'll let, it's not just the teachers, by the way, I'm talking about everyone. Kathy, can you kind of let the board know what's going on? I'd appreciate it with that.
Sure, Dr. Sal, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So in terms of the pause, where we're at right now, the state is continuing to vaccinate under 1A, and they have moved on to individuals who are 75 years of age and older. As Dr. Sal mentioned, the school personnel have been put on pause, and that's really due to vaccine supply. From week to week, the local health department has not always known how much vaccine they're going to get. So that has been, of course, a challenge in just getting the people who are eligible right now vaccinated. What I've been told is that all directions will come from the state, the district, even the local health department has no control over who will be enrolled next, who will be eligible. So when the state does give us that direction, we do have someone who will be responsible for uploading the lists, entering into the VAMP system, and then individuals will receive an invitation to set up an account, and they will be able to schedule their vaccine. According to the Department of Health, I was on a call with them yesterday. They don't have a firm timeline. What they're telling us is that for school personnel, they're looking at possibly late February to early March.
So when you look at that, as I said, early March for when you can get in there. So through March, we're going to vaccinate, and then you have to wait, I don't know, what is it, 4 weeks?
Well, for the Pfizer vaccine, you need to wait 21 days, and the Moderna is 28 days.
So, you put that onto it, and then you have to wait 2 weeks after that for, it to take effect. You can see, we're talking summer school here. So we're going to try to really, I don't want to say push, but really make the case to see if we can, pardon the expression, jumping ahead of the line to get our teachers and staff in there so we stand a better chance to have a safer environment and get our kids back. So Kathy, thank you for your help. And I also want to thank Kara with Rogers Park setting that all up. So, appreciate that. I don't know if the board member has questions about that, but I'll go to the lottery if there's no questions on the vaccine. Okay. Kevin, can you update the board on the AIS and West Side lotteries, please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So first, I'll start with West Side. That's the easiest one. Dr. LaBanca and Jennifer Blue, assistant principal at West Side Middle School. They have been going to our elementary schools via Google Meet to promote West Side Middle School in the lottery process. And so Frank has done a wonderful job in that effort, and we anticipate a big turnout as we've always had for the West Side Lottery. And what the AIS lottery has completed. We had 627 applications for the lottery this year. Certainly a really good turnout overall, but the board should be aware that we're down about 150, 160 applications from previous years. But we feel like we still have enough applications to fill the seats at AIS, but our numbers are down. The principal at AIS continues to do a good job recruiting. We had 17 applications from our non-partner schools and 17 applications in total. 72 applications in total between our non-partner schools and partner schools. Danbury, internally, we had 555 applications. And again, in total, we had 627 applications. So in a couple of weeks, we will be reaching out to families and informing them of their place in the lottery, and start calling families soon and inviting them in to accept seats at AIS. So it's exciting times for us, and the train continues to move despite the pandemic and this virtual platform we've all been working on.
Any question for Mr. Watson?
I do, Richard Gianelli. Kevin, the 100+ figure of the decline, is that a grand total between the out of district as well as the Danbury kids, or is it just Danbury?
It is, Mr. Gianelli. It's down actually on both sides. The numbers actually internally here in Danbury are also down. And so it's about 150, 160 in total. But the Danbury numbers are down. But our partners and non-partner schools, those applications are down this year as well. We've typically had at least more applications from Brookfield in particular We've only had 11 applications this year.
So to Courtney, in terms of developing a budget, this would potentially have an impact on our budget too.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Just so Kevin, just so everybody knows, the lottery is not run at the district. We have an organization that runs the lottery. That materials come into us. Now we start following up. So I just want to reemphasize that. I'm sorry, Gladys, I didn't hear you had a question.
Mr. Washington, could you forward the information to board members, as we, you give out the information, we're trying to write the numbers down and try to do something else at the same time. Could you forward the information where our numbers are now versus last year?
Absolutely.
And what areas those numbers are up and what areas those numbers are down?
Not a problem. I'll get something out by the end of the week to the board.
Okay, thank you.
And Kevin, just to also provide to you, I can get when you send it out as part of the board package. We provide the budget with some information about the enrollment historically, so I can give that to you as well if that's helpful.
Yeah, it would be helpful. The board like that. Just so the board, we have to maintain that 70-30 proportion. If for some reason we don't, we do have a year to mitigate. I guess, that was passed about 2 or 3 years ago with our board's help and the delegation so that we don't get cut off, immediately. So we could strategize in terms of how to get the numbers up.
Dr. Sal, I just want to also clarify to Mr. Gianelli's point, just for everyone to be mindful, these are new applications. And of course, we get them every year. The heaviest number of applications come in kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2. And so, our seats right now, we are approximately at a 70-30 ratio right now at AIS. And so it's not as if we're starting from scratch, with enrollment for AIS. All of these applications are backfilling seats for students who will be leaving next year, graduating to middle school. And so, I don't want to leave the impression that we're starting from scratch, and because the numbers are down, it automatically means we're going to lose funding. We'll have a better idea. It really depends on if these out-of-town families accept the seats. I think we're going to be in good shape. But it's always better to have more to choose from. And right now we don't have as many families to choose from as we've had in years past. But if those out-of-town seats, if those families accept the seats, I think we'll continue to be in at least a 70-30 range that we're in now.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything else with the lotteries?
No.
Okay, good. Building facilities update. I know, Mr. Britton, I think we're trying to have a meeting on Wednesday. We're trying to get a hold of the town. We wanted them to come in and discuss the projects. We have Osborne coming around. We've been moving out of there, and we're moving into Granville. And at some point, we should maybe even have I guess we can't meeting, but maybe we could do a video of the building. You really did a nice job there. And then backfilling, we have a plan to backfill with Sacred Heart. We're on a year-by-year rental or lease, which would work out for Dr. Mead and her group and for the registration center, which would save us some money, quite frankly. So that'll work out really well for us. We also have the summit going forward. Kara and her team doing a tremendous job in defining programmatically what will happen there, and then working with the board in terms of ed specs to create that environment to make it work. The board's going to have some decisions to make in terms of how we fill that up. It will be expensive. You're talking maybe it's going to be 6 through 12, and how I think it's 1,200, and how we fill it up. So that's going to kind of be both exciting and challenging. But we just want to hear more about that. And I was reminded last week too, when we went through all of this, One of the proposals that the city was looking at was building an early childhood center. And you may recall the area that they were looking at was over at Great Plains School on the one side as a possibility. So I'm asking them to discuss that. That's down the road. So we have a lot of things going on for building and facilities. The funding for that has been good. So, hopefully we can get everybody next Wednesday, Mr. Britton, and have that meeting and have Antonio and Dan come to the meeting. I don't know if you have any other comments, but that's sort of where we're at on all of that. Has it been set up, by the way, Kara?
Yeah, I emailed Kara and she said that it looked good for Wednesday, just waiting to finalize the agenda and everything.
Great. Would that be at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, 6 o'clock, yep.
Okay, great. So that's terrific, and we want to do that. And I know the town had a meeting last night on that steering committee. I was not able to attend. There was a mess up in the invite for us, but I guess they went, and so they can update us with that as well. They had some conversations last night about the summit. So next Wednesday for the facilities committee. In your packet, you should have received a blueprint. Just take some time to go through it. The CAP spent about 2 years or thereabouts putting this together with some specialists, and it talks about how the funding in the state of Connecticut, or how education in the state of Connecticut can come up and in a way that'd be much more equitable in terms of particularly with our cause, the cities. They're looking at ECS funding over a 15-year period to increase it by about 2.5%. They had about 30 points. They were looking at ways to recruit teachers. They were looking at ways to work on social emotional assistance for districts. Also looking at school improvement and grants, collapsing some grants and focusing them more, making them easier for particularly the Alliance District, which we are. The other big thing is looking at the funding of special education. You all know that excess cost never is filled or funded fully, that the state needs to step up somehow and think about doing this. They are focusing on ELL as well, because that's the fastest growing population in the state. We're the poster for that. Our students are part of our great mosaic. It's having our kids, our yellow kids, but the funding there needs to follow. So they're working on that as well. In government, they're looking at ways to reduce the number of assessments, which we think would be helpful instead of the yearly program that they have. One of the things for the board, we're into a minimum budget, MBR. The recommendation is go to not MBR, but actual expenditure spent, and to try to come up with a foundation level that's reflective of that. There are 30 points in here along with a backup. So, I just suggested you go through it, and you'll hear more and more. This is over a period of time. My only dilemma is I don't want this to interfere with our proposal of Danbury getting up to our allocation 8 more years to get the right funding. And in fact, we've asked for an acceleration of it. I did mention that the CAPS as well. So I did lodge that complaint that if this is done, that it not impact those of us that already have been cited to come up to a parity for getting our educational funding. So just take your time and go through it. If you have some questions, just ask me. We can, I'm sure CAPS or CABE will have some workshops on it as well. If I could just spend a minute. Today we had the legislative meeting, and it was a good meeting, lasted over an hour and 10 minutes. We presented the draft that the board looked at, which basically was similar to last year. We have 2 members of our delegation on the Education Committee, which is really good for us. The senator's on there, Krishna, and another elected official, and I'm sorry, I can't think of his name, but at least we have two folks that we can talk to. And I think they expressed their support for our programming and for the funding. So I'm excited about that. We also talked, as I mentioned before, about the vaccine and trying to do some kind of a prioritizing for, Danbury or urbans like Danbury that have been challenged with the community spread. So I thought this morning was a successful meeting. Gladys, you were there. I don't know if you have any comments about it or any other, Kelly or Kevin or Courtney. It's a good time to do it.
Not that, Dr. Sayre, you expressed it quite well. I think it was a good meeting. I think that the delegations brought and discussed all the concerns that you brought forth to them concerning how to continue working together to make sure that we move our district forward in the right direction. And I thank you for inviting me to that meeting. It was very educational and very informative. And I think that we have a group of people that's going to be working with us, alongside of us, to move what we need to get done here in Danbury forward.
Great. Kelly or Kevin, anything? You good?
Just to reiterate, I was very, very appreciative of the time, and I'm really seriously listening to Danbury's needs and concerns. They asked a lot of insightful questions, and I think gained a lot of knowledge to help inform moving what they need to do forward.
I told them, keep us on speed dial. Just give us the buzz and, we'll do what we can, inform them. So thank you very much. That is my report.
Do you want to move down to
Yes,
discussion item A?
Yes, I can. I sent you the material. This started, oh my goodness. I think the governor started last spring talking about expanding open enrollment. I know Mark had come through Mark and, asking questions about our area. So apparently, as you see, there is a proposal for open choice for expanding it, and it hadn't been done in years in this western part of the state, which would be us, and for Norwalk to expand that part of the area. The information is just coming through. It does speak to ways of filling the buildings that maybe need enrollment. It is a voluntary program. It is not a required program. There's some questions about expenditures and costs that the delegation this morning said they too wanted some clarity on, particularly about special education courses. What does it mean when it's reasonable? I wonder about the ELL courses support, but they were mindful of those at this point. So if it does become a law, then they would have to create the process. Normally the RESC in the area, they implement it. For us, it's going to be the CES, which is down in Fairfield County. That RESC is going to, I guess, manage it. So far, the only districts that I know that seem to have been interested, there was a presentation at Ridgefield, and I got a call from the superintendent in Brookfield, and that's it. That's all I've received so far. So stay tuned about that one, but you do have all of the materials. And the open choice, so everybody knows, is more for voluntary desegregation and to have our suburban schools more integrated, along with helping for enrollment issues as well. So that's what that's about.
Kate has a question.
Rachel also had her hand up. She actually was first. Thank you, though.
So the way I understood it is it's geared more toward elementary level. Can you confirm that? And also, I just would like to express my support for expanding that as, a small piece of a multifaceted solution for our enrollment issues. I think it's just a small piece of the puzzle.
I'll have to check. I don't think there's been any commitment, but it would make sense to start with the elementary and through it. I haven't gotten much information on it. as they go through, I guess, with the proposal, we'll gather that and I'll bring it to the board as soon as I can find out some information. Absolutely.
Okay.
I had heard from a Board of Ed member in Sherman, and I don't know, this is going back now at least a year, if not longer, that they had open seats available at Sherman as well. So I don't know if that's something that you could reach out about, Dr. Sal, or if somebody else should be doing that.
Well, what has happened was the rest sent out I won't use the word survey, but an interest to the whole region. And then they responded to that. And the gentleman from says, will do presentations to those districts that are interested. And the only two that I've heard so far, Kate, that had indicated.
Were those? Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't mean there won't be more now, but he did send out that. And that's all I know, the two that are interested at this point. There'll be time and to do it if there's an interest.
May I just clarify one more thing, Dr. Sal? I'm just, you said that CES, which is the lower Fairfield.
Yeah, Co-op Education, yeah, CES. It's in Fairfield. They're the regional office, apparently, that's going to run it.
As opposed to Ed Advance, which is our RESC.
Typically, it would be Ed Advance, but for some reason, maybe they have the infrastructure and the staff already. I'm not sure, but that's where they're running it out of at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And he could, actually, he said he'd be willing to come up and do a presentation. I think that'd be a good idea down the road. He's been doing it, okay? If you guys are interested, let me know. We can invite him.
I guess my question would be, and I know there hasn't been a lot of information about this, is the grade level. And whether we send first grader, second grader over to Ridgefield or any other surrounding district. And I often think about how parents react when their kids are on the bus from Danbury. I think we really have to have the presentation, understanding what is the real purpose of this and how would it benefit our children, not just looking at, filling space and moving some of our children out of our school into surrounding areas or surrounding areas coming in. I think there's a lot of unknown about this. And, like I said, I would not want to put, if I had a child going to school. I'm sorry?
If you'd like, just kind of let me know. I'll ask their executive director, whomever runs the program, to come and give the board a presentation.
Okay.
I can do that. Just let me know, and I will arrange that.
Okay, thank you,
We'll all learn something, because it has been dormant for years and years because it hasn't been funded.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question, Madam Chair, to Dr. Sal?
Yes.
So Dr. Sal, did you just say it's been dormant, so there hasn't been a lot of attention to it? Or there wasn't?
It hasn't expanded.
Okay.
The program hasn't expanded. In fact, when I was reading the proposal for the blueprint for Connecticut schools that I sent out, there was a clause in here that talked about, actually, it said before you do any more expanding, they should address require more study of schools of choice to address, for example, the inequities and funding problems of magnet schools, which is they need to tackle how they're funding the schools. So open choice has been in that lump, so they haven't been doing anything. This is the first legislation in a number of years to present itself. So that's brand new. It hasn't been approved yet. If it does, then Danbury and Norwalk would be the areas that it would impact. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll have them here if the board would like, and we'll all learn something. Okay, no more questions. If you do have any, just send me an email and I'll try to answer it, because there are open questions on it, I know. the reopening of schools and the extended learning program. Kevin has been working with the principals and Courtney. If you don't mind, I'll start with the extended learning program. Dr. Mead is here. That is something that we've been very worried about. And she'll explain why and what we're doing. And I want to thank her for really trying to do this because we know it's important for families. Go ahead, Dr. Mead.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Sal. Good evening, everyone. So the extended learning program operates, for your knowledge, in the all the elementary schools in the morning and the afternoon, and in the middle schools just in the afternoon. And we had to furlough off people this fall. And so HR has been working with us to bring those folks back. But because of the early hours that school is getting out, teachers and paras have to contractually stay in their buildings. And so we have been working with recruiting more staff to come in to be able to staff those programs. I believe next week we will probably be able to open up 2 or 3 schools. We will be following the same protocols and everything that the schools are following, distance, the hand washing, everything that they're doing, protocols, contact tracing, things like that. So my focus this week and next week is to continue to recruit staff. We have gone out to our safety advocates who work shorter hours, as well as our school lunch people. We have it in Apple Track and out in Indeed, looking for staff. I'm working with a college to recruit students from there. Hopefully we'll get some that can actually walk to Ellsworth School depending on their schedule. And then we have it out on social media. So if you know anyone that's looking to work from 7 to 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and then 12:30 to 6 or 1 o'clock to 6, have them apply to the application or to call me and I can walk them through the process. So, but it is our full intent to get that program back up and running for our families, because we want to keep them in the learning mode in which they have already decided, that of hybrid, and not throw the delicate balance that we've created as a district between those that are distance learning and those that are in hybrid. So that's my update.
Thank you. And I know there's been a lot of questions in the reopening about health and safety and that, and Kathy's with us tonight. I think, Kathy, maybe you could comment the work that you've been doing and how we're working with the nurses and with the principals and with the teachers with the reopening. Can you do that for us, please?
Yes, sure, Dr. Sal. In terms of the reopening, I'm very confident in the mitigation strategies that we have in place. I also need to thank Courtney and Rich Jalbert and their team. They've done a wonderful job with getting everything in place as far as, all the hand sanitizers, the arrows on the floors, directions where to go, how traffic will flow, the 6-foot distancing. So as I said, I'm very confident in those measures. Every school has an isolation room, which we are, prepared to use if that's necessary. If we have a concern that a child is exhibiting COVID symptoms, the child will be assessed and put in that isolation room. And then we ask that parents be available to come and pick their child up within 30 minutes. The nurses have all been trained in the contact tracing, and we are prepared to do that either during the school day, after school hours, or on weekends, whatever is necessary. We have plenty of PPE. We're well supplied, and it's been great to see the kids back in the building, and we're enjoying it.
I know today with contact tracing and all of that work that we're doing with the health department. And I think that's been the biggest challenge, so the board would know, but we were asked about the report. So just to reemphasize where the reporting regarding the number of cases we have, where that would be, and just find everyone how that's handled, please, with the reopening.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my camera's gone off, I apologize. So in terms of notifications, just briefly on the contact tracing. So when a case is identified, we have a direct contact notification. We identify who has been a close contact of that positive person. And we have a procedure in place as far as collaborating with the nurses and the principals and how we get that message out to parents and to staff who have been determined to be close contacts. In addition to that, there will be a general notification letter that goes out to the school staff and community. It's just informing them that there's a case. It lets them know that the direct contacts have been notified, and it is just for their information. And then in terms of the public, back in December, Gina helped me to establish a COVID-19 dashboard, and it is housed on the Danbury Public Schools website. It's, as soon as you go to the homepage, it's on the right-hand side. And that will be updated, I would say within 48 hours. I do look to do it every 24, but depending on how things are going, it may be 48 hours. So it will tell the individual school if we have a case, if close contacts have been identified, if so, how many and how many people we have in quarantine. And it will just, again, we want to be transparent and offer the public the information to see the cases, but we do not identify if it is a student or a staff member. You know, we want to let you know how many cases we have, but we also have to protect the privacy of the individual who does have COVID. So that site is there for the general public to view whenever they choose to.
I know it's a big deal, so before I move on, does anybody have any questions of Kathy?
I do, Madam Chair, when it's appropriate.
Oh, right ahead, Mr.
Kathy, just a couple questions. I noticed the dashboard doesn't look like it was updated since, well, the
24th.
Right. Yes. Have we had any further quarantines or issues since then?
Yes, we have, and it's because of the time that has taken me to investigate that and take care of the priority of notifying the direct contacts and the general school community. I usually update that in the evenings.
Okay.
But that will be done by tomorrow. That will be all updated.
That wasn't a complaint. It was just leading to my next question. How many people do we have on quarantine?
Currently, okay, so we have had, since we reopened, we've had 4 quarantines. They have been grade level. I'm sorry, classroom, not grade level, classrooms. So in those 4 currently, we have 70.
Okay. One other question. Sure. How have we been doing? Are we seeing kids coming to school sick? More importantly, are we seeing kids coming to school with, if they're not sick, that a family member is sick, their siblings sick, their parents are sick? Are we sending kids home? How is that coming?
Okay. So yes, we have seen some, not a lot of children coming to school sick, but it has happened. And as soon as the teacher identifies that either the child is coughing or appears to be ill, they go right to the school nurse, and then the appropriate action is taken, and we are calling parents to come and pick them up. In terms of illness at home, the nurse, once they become aware, and sometimes that information comes from a teacher, a child may reveal something if they've been on, if they're online, that someone is sick in the house, we start investigating that. And we are asking that if there is an ill family member, that everyone in that family remain at home until COVID tests have been conducted.
Any other question of Kathy?
I froze up there at the end. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, picture that, Joe.
The other area that there's been a work in has been with Kim and her group. I know she has been working with the principals. Kim, you want to talk about your segment with the reopening?
Sure. Part of what we're really struggling with is trying to make sure that we can provide enough support to Kathy for contact tracing, and that we can have a handle on when we have employees that are calling in with absences. Do we need to triage them in the direction of this is an ordinary absence, or this could be a COVID-related absence? So in the last week or so, my team's been working at putting out they're basically sort of flow charts, and they start with help, I'm a teacher and I need an absence, or help, I'm a para and I need an absence. And it walks them through a series of steps on how to enter an absence, particularly if it is COVID related. What the flow chart does is it links to a Google Doc or a Google form that they are asked to complete, name the best phone number to reach you at, and some really generic entries. For example, my child's been asked to quarantine, or I'm awaiting test results. Once they hit submit, it feeds directly into a Google Doc on Kathy O'Dowd's desk, which filters all of the information into columns for her so that she can see it and she can start triaging the contact tracing piece. That also feeds into my office, where we then go back around to look to make sure that we have appropriate coverage, if we have to provide any supplemental staff. As you've heard me say, there's a fairly reduced number, I would say dramatically reduced number of resources from which to draw in order to cover classrooms if needed. So I've also been working with administrators and their secretaries across the district to ensure that they have a plan that is known to the building administrator and their second person in charge on how classes will be covered in the event that there are high numbers of absences. I've asked those building administrators to provide kind of a tag or trigger number on what's the number of absences of teachers or staff in a day that you think you can comfortably handle by moving some of your staff around. And that information has gone to Melissa Bang, who's responsible for coordinating our ASAP coverage. And if she works typically and checks in the evening and very early in the morning. So we've set up kind of a call tree. When she sees that trigger number hit, she connects with the administrator, who then will work with Dr. Sal and Kevin to determine whether they can provide coverage or we may need to close a building. Part of what we're really trying to be prepared for is we're trying to have as much information as we can in the event that we think we may need to close because of staffing issues. This, as I said 2 weeks ago, this is going to be one of our greatest challenges in communications with families on how to get them sufficient notice so that they can make arrangements for a closing that we may have to invoke because of staffing problems. And we continue to kind of talk about the earliest point where we think we can provide that. What is clear is that we can't provide that closure information early in the morning on a school day. Students will already be in motion, they'll already be on buses. So we're really trying to pay attention to who are all of the people in a given building who could be called upon to sub if needed. Some of this is going to be by experience. We've tried to anticipate a number of scenarios so that we can be as ready as we can be, and some of it will be by experience. I will tell you, now that we've had elementary in for a week and a half, and this is the week with middle, we're starting to see increasing sick numbers. And so that's causing not only a knockoff for Kathy, who has got to do the contact tracing, but also we're starting to watch how we're going to invoke coverage so that every student is appropriately supervised and covered with a teacher. I definitely think I'm destined for a career in logistics. We're getting there. And as I said, at a certain point, I think we're all going to be just hopeful that we've got a sufficient communication scale built and a tree built so that we can communicate with each other. But typically these things, as you might expect, happen in the evening. So we've already had some experience with getting going, late at night with Kelly and Kathy and her team to try to mobilize as quickly as we can. So that's really where I've spent a lot of my attention right now. We also, in the last week or so, have had quite an uptick in requested accommodations. These are not folks that we had heard from since June as we've been providing those accommodations. These are mostly new requests. And so those are some difficult conversations because we are really not in a position now with staffing to be able to provide additional support or coverage for teachers who want to work exclusively from home. So those conversations are still ongoing in my office. And as I said, they've escalated fairly considerably in the last week or so. So we're trying to get to those folks to make sure that we can provide in-building support as we need to, or alternative accommodations, or in some cases, leaves of absence, to try to figure out the best way to kind of help people through this period of time. I will tell you that, as I've said before, the level of adjustment and resilience and commitment from all of your staff, from administrators to teachers, all the way through, down to paraeducators, custodians, safety advocates, school lunch. These people, the uniform commitment is we want to be in school, we want to be with kids, we're doing everything we can, and some of them are really at significant personal cost, are really trying to make this work. So I continue to be grateful for the time and the ability to meet with these people by Zoom and talk with them often more than once to make sure that we can get them the support that we need to get them back to school with their kids. So we'll get there. I think we're all a little deflated by the vaccine problem. I think we were all very optimistic that that was going to go more quickly. So as I said, we're a little deflated by that, but we're going to get there one way or the other. So that's my report.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Kim, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, in terms of coverage, somebody had asked me, and honestly, I don't even remember who. I don't remember whether somebody messaged me on social media or whether I saw somebody at the grocery store. There was a I found disconcerting rumor, so did they.
Okay.
That in terms of coverage, that we may be pulling the DL teacher for elementary schools to cover in schools. That's not true, is it?
Right. It may be true, and let me describe it this way. Each building administrator is trying to put together, they've worked with me to know who all of the folks are in their buildings. And there's a variety of people that can be used to cover. Every building has a building sub, at least one, and that's somebody who is dedicated every day to going to that building. Many, many buildings also have what we call a cohort sub. It could be a couple of days a week. It could be 4 days a week. Again, committed to go to the buildings, although we've been having trouble with one for every building just in terms of getting people to commit. That's the first two primary pieces. There also may be some sub coverage through the ASOP pool, which is kind of sporadic coverage. That's also very much in place, and we continue to scan the applications for those. I will tell you that I think last week there were 2. There's not a lot of people coming in. The next list then goes to folks like, again, understanding not anybody's first choice. Could be some paraeducators, could be some ESL teachers, could be ESL paras, could be your SRBI paras, could be coaches. We've talked with the NEA Danbury leadership. It could be specialist teachers. And if we get to the bottom, Joe, honestly, and it's the choice between closing the building or not, it may be a DL teacher that gets redeployed and those kids go on asynchronous learning.
As the parent of a DL kid,
I know.
one of the reasons why we chose DL was specifically the problem that I had with hybrid, that the other 2 days there's no teacher, that it is asynchronous. I would be deeply disconcerted to find that all of a sudden we're pulling DL teachers out, because the fact that they're there 4 days a week is a significant component of why people chose that option.
And I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I think I want to stress it's a really last case scenario, and it probably would be for a day. I don't see it as a solution for more than that.
And I don't want your job channeling your inner Harry Potter to try to make all of this work. I get it.
I know, but I do appreciate that, because it's a very common piece of feedback, and we have heard it. But I really do think, we've had many communications with, particularly at the elementary level, with those administrators, and they are all very well aware that that's a do or die situation. And I'm hopeful we don't get there. I really am.
Okay. Thank you.
I think for the board, what we've come through. And we've said, when we come back, and this is the reasons why we're coming back, we've got the mitigation strands. But I thought we accentuated the challenges. And the big challenge has not been in the virus being spread within. It's been the ability for schools, this is the practice, to maintain and stay open when the adults get infected. If we get to the point where there's a critical number, we'll get a call and say, stay at home, and it'll be DL. I mean, that has been the challenge. So, you know, and it is dire straits, we would have to put folks in there, but we do have a continuum and a plan. But, you know, it may be where we just have to close, and that's just the way it's going to be. It's just going to be our life until we get everything done, particularly with this vaccine. So, Kim, I thank you and your group for doing that. I don't know if anybody else has any questions of Kim before we move to the next part.
I don't have a question for Kim, but just on reopening, Dr. Sal, is this the appropriate time, Gladys?
Yes, go ahead.
So a similar situation as to Joe's, where, you know, the parents just made a decision based on what the original plan was. And for the middle schools, and Dr. Sal, you and I went back and forth about this, but there was a last minute change to have the kids go to school and be limited to one core classroom and then learn remotely for their other core classes. I'm not saying I disagree or agree with that. You know, my 2 middle schoolers had 2 really great days this week, and I also feel confident in the mitigation strategies that were put in place. It's not to say I don't have anxiety with sending them back, but I feel pretty confident, you know, with the protocols in place. So with that decision, I think parents just have to be nimble and flexible, right, in this time and environment that we're in. I know that there were some that weren't happy, but you know, that's kind of a major factor when, you know, families make a decision to, you know, go DL or go hybrid. Could you talk about like how that decision was made? Was it a team decision? And I understand, you know, it's for just initially 2 weeks, but what will determine if kids are allowed to move from class to class at some point?
Sure. Christy, are you still on? Is Dr. Zeta?
Yes, I'm here. I was looking for the mute button.
I think it would be helpful because just so the board knows, these things are not done in a vacuum. There's a lot of conversation going on about safety. Of course, you would expect me to have our medical folks involved, and Kathy is on and she's been advising. One of the things I'm kind of proud of Christy and her group and Deanne and the others, they've reached out to and have been involved in communication with surrounding districts, not only in Connecticut, but out of state. And I call it the accordion method. We were in opening, and I'll just go on the record by saying that initially opening, we wanted to stay open. And I think the lens that the middle school looked at was how to do that best. And they've worked together. I'm going to let Christy speak to that. One of the things that we have to understand that that we look at central office is that as decisions are promulgated at a level that for consistency, pretty much they have to be the same. So there had to be discussion among and between those principals over time. And Kevin has been part of those conversations. But in this particular case, I'll let Christy explain to the whole board why and our thinking about the movement ahead and opening up to greater flexibility and starting in a way that we feel is safer to avoid quarantining and closing down. But Christy, can you?
Dr. Sal, I'm okay with going first.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Talk about how it's looking. So Rachel, and for the board in general, you know, when talking through these mitigation strategies, and to Sal's point about our efforts to try to keep everyone safe, we felt it was in everyone's best interest to limit the movement as much as possible. And so this was really about maintaining our cohorts in our classes and in our various grade levels, have an opportunity to see how we're doing, making sure that we can, you know, make sure our teachers and our staff are accustomed to implementing the protocols. It was a significant step for us. We felt like we had a successful week with elementary. Our principals, our teachers did an amazing job first week at the elementary schools. We had every confidence that the middle schools would do the same thing. But frankly, one, to Sal's point, we wanted to make sure all the middle schools were doing something similar in terms of implementing a model that looked similar. But two, we didn't want to compromise our kids the second they got back in the buildings. And so, Kathy earlier had talked about the contact tracing protocol. And I don't want to say that's easy, but we've already had a case at one of our elementary schools, more than one. And so when we look at the contact tracing and we have to make a case to quarantine a classroom, it's much easier to quarantine a classroom when the cohort is limited movement. In middle schools, we might have to shut Christy's grade level down or potentially a school. And we just wanted to get some confidence and just try to get back in our buildings first before we had students moving around the buildings. And I understand, I think we all understand the parents' concerns about, hey, my kid has been home for, almost the entire year. And I thought I signed up for a regular school experience. And I think it's okay to say we're not ready for the full experience yet. And I think we're taking baby steps right now just to ensure, just to protect everyone. That's our staff. Kim shared our obstacles with just making sure our staff is safe every day and the challenges with staffing and the supports in terms of subs that we have or don't have. And we were concerned about all of those things, and all of those things went into the decision making. So for right or wrong, I think we felt pretty good. Let's just start with the cohort first. It's not ideal. The last thing we wanted to do was, I think Sal said it best a couple of months ago. When we go back to school, we wanted to be as close to the school experience as possible. And I know the middle school students are probably saying, and their parents are saying, this is not, regular middle school. And we understand that. But we do feel like this is a good first step. So I just, as Christy, I know you're on the spot. I'm still going to put you on the hot seat, Christy, but I just wanted to let everyone know, like, this was behind the decision. Like, we feel pretty good about the cohorting piece. And that was important to maintain at middle school, at least from the beginning, to make sure our staff is accustomed to implementing those protocols.
Chrissy, you want to add anything to that? You can if you want, if not.
I don't mind. First, our middle school administrative team, we're a tight-knit group of 8. We work together happily on most things. So while we have nuances in our buildings that make us a little bit different, we enjoy each other's company on the regular. And so when we're faced with these kind of things, we like to work together and collaborate. So we 100% we're collaborating with one another. Some of us belong to a CAS group that actually has administrators from across the state meeting. And when we were coming back into hybrid, I had reached out and just said, hey, what do you guys, tell me what's the best thing you've done? What should I avoid? And it was an overwhelming cohort. Keep your kids, if you could keep them as cohort as possible, that's the best part. The opening up and shutting down is killing us. And we are blessed to have Kathy that's doing, and all of our nurses doing this crazy contact tracing, because the principals spend it. And I felt their pain today, the first time with trying to figure out where some possible exposures were. But that just weighed heavy on my mind. And as a parent too, I have a high schooler and an elementary schooler, and just thinking, like, what would I want my child to do if I was going to choose to put them into hybrid, and how I want to keep them safe. We are still in a global pandemic with a more virulent strain coming out. I'm aware of that. And so are the other administrators. We are also aware of the strain it's putting on our children and our parents. And so we wanted to do something that was going to keep us open as long as possible, because it's going to happen. It's already happened to our elementary friends. No matter how hard they tried, it's going to happen. But we wanted to say, let's see how long we could keep it open. To Kevin's point, you have one kid now who went, or if it's an adult, you just went from 17 individual classrooms where you were staying, interacting. And by the way, teachers have said kids have been engaging more than ever, whether they're in person or not, just from, kind of the change, which is good. But now you took those 17 individual pods that if one person was positive, you just shut down that one classroom. They just moved to 4 other classrooms that may have been with other kids. And so it's kind of that did that as a science teacher, used to do that STD thing with the M&Ms and who touched the M&M, and then you spread it. And so now, like Kevin said, it could be a grade level, depending on the class that they went to, could be 3 if it's like a PE class. So we were looking at it less of anything else than let's keep the school open. We want these kids in here. We believe in that wholeheartedly. And we want to do everything we can to mitigate the closing down, because all of the districts that have opened up, any person that you talk to, and you could ask some staff members here whose kids are from other districts, the quarantining and closing down is more disruptive than anything else. That's been our push. And again, like Sal said, we're going to look at this on Thursday, determine, how many kids are in quarantine, how's the quarantining been working? Has it moved? And, our goal to move through the schedule as normal. We want the kids, the teachers love seeing them come back. We've loved seeing the kids, but we want to do it safe, and we don't want to shut down every other minute. Because if you're a parent that's counting on having your kids out at school for 2 days, and now all of a sudden you got to come pick them up, that's a disruption that nobody wants to deal with.
Thank you, guys. So anyway, we'll be reviewing it. You can all tell we're trying to do what's best, and we felt this was best. And yes, decisions made from central office for continuity and safety, but it is a team approach. And, I think the board, we should be proud that we spent so much time in doing what's right. We'll transition to the next phase. We're going to look at it next week. The good news, everyone, holding out a little bit. The numbers have come down regarding the infection rate and what have you. So that's sort of what we anticipated. And so we'll look at all of these things next week. So, that's how that came to fruition. I do have a little bit more to talk about. If you don't mind, I'll move. I wanted Kara to talk about the instructional piece, how you think it's going. K-5 anyway. Now, just for the board, for the high school, we don't have an opportunity to do any of this. They're going to come in and they're going to move around. We cannot, isolate and do the cohort. So that's going to be, the numbers, they come back in a week, February 1st. So we're just going to have to watch that closely. We had the opportunity at the middle school to do something a little bit different, but the high school is going to be, normal as possible. We have about 4,400 kids that are on DL. The rest are coming in on 2 split days. So the numbers are down. The hallways are marked. They've gone one ways. And so, do as much as possible regarding avoiding and social distancing. But the high school will be on their normal pattern for structure anyway. So, Kara, you have something?
Sure. Just, just the general reports that, things are going as planned so far. The first week or so with the students coming in, now middle school as well, but particularly with K-5 is really about establishing the routines of safety and procedure and how to operate in their building, in their classroom, in this environment, and sort of the rules of engagement. And so that has gone well. It was a little bit more of a lighter instructional week than we would normally plan, but it's pretty typical for if students were coming in September and they're seeing their classrooms for the first time. So too, those things still happen, even though it happens to be January. So we have all of some of those typical things, but then a whole bunch of things that are not so typical given the new structures that we have. So teachers are very eager to meet with the kids. It was wonderful to see some of the photos and to see some of the kids coming in to the buildings. They were very excited across the board. I think one of the great benefits in this environment is getting that return energy when you see your kids in person, after not seeing them for so long. So there's nothing that can really beat that. So in far as some of the more instructional sides of things, we were able to, I'm not sure if we mentioned this the last time that we met, but we were able to provide a secondary device to all of the teachers who requested it. And that was made possible through our tech department, who worked feverishly to reconstitute and get our laptops that were ready, Chromebooks coming back from the high school. So when the high school received their donation, their large gift, those students have over time started to return those Chromebooks. And the tech department has repurposed and refurbished those laptops so that we can provide a secondary device to our K-5 teachers so that they can be able to work with the at-home kids and in person a little bit more easily. So with 2 devices to help to monitor and one to project our lessons if they need to do that. And so we think that that will be a great help. We've also had a lot of monitors flowing into the district, which are also a great help in this environment through some generous programs where teachers simply had to ask and they were donated, which was amazing. So we're really happy about that. You know, we did have to make some very quick shifts and pivots. Teachers from this point forward will be struggling a little bit with how to handle students who are in quarantine. So you have students who are at home in a cohort, students who are in school, and now the dynamic of quarantining across the week. And so we're working through some of the challenges and logistics in terms of pacing, and there'll be nuances in every building based on how that's going. But we have full faith that our teachers will be, I think, who used the word flexible or quick and nimble, that's going to be something that will be sort of par for the course for everybody, probably for the remainder of the year. But I'm very proud of the teachers with the transitions, the principals, the unbelievable amount of planning that has gone into this. Ken mentioned something about being specializing in logistics at this point. And I think that that's another good term that we'll be using a lot. Every single day, there are meetings to plan for multiple scenarios. And those change and evolve daily over the course of the week. And so no day has been the same for quite a while. So, and in this particular environment with opening and the quarantining, everyone will continue to have to be quite flexible and to be ready to pivot at a moment's notice. And, we have great staff and our teachers are very flexible and have been flexible and they've been fantastic. And so as things come up, we will make those adjustments. I know there were some questions at the last board meeting about, how are our kids doing? And, we, now that we're back in, we will begin to administer the STAR assessment for the winter. And then the loss testing has also just started, and that will kind of run through the beginning of March. So we should have some winter data by maybe early March, depending how long it takes us to get through this assessment window. I will preface that by saying that the environment that we are testing in is atypical, and therefore results are not considered reliable. We did do some fall data assessment, and our data was wildly all over the place. Reports in the younger grades, some of the data looked better than it's ever had, but the teachers reported that the students also had a little bit of help at home with some of the questions on the test from, maybe some supportive parents who were trying to help with directions and things like that. So unintentional things. But as we get students into a little bit more routines, some of those more universal assessments may become more predictable, but it's difficult to use a universal assessment in this environment because your control factors are not the same. We have students coming and going, students who are in quarantine. Testing a student who is in the home environment is very different than testing in the school environment. And so we cannot control for those factors. So really the best way to tell how a child is doing is to talk to the teacher. We have ongoing embedded informal assessments in our curriculum. And so those more informal conversations about how students are doing with grade level curriculum are really, will give you the most amount of information right now. That said, we're still going to go ahead and move ahead with those assessments. We will work through those over the course of the next month and a half. And we will see what that data says. And we also will have to still implement our ESPA assessments and GSS and figure logistically how to accomplish that, which will be very challenging in this environment. But we will do that too. And we will use whatever data we can gather from the kids to make decisions instructionally as we go. And we will probably have a report out due at some point in March to kind of use whatever data we have available at that point. Again, with a grain of salt about the testing environment. But we can, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Thank you. And last, Kelly, you have anything to bring up?
Sure. I just want to update the board on the opening of the new preschool. I have to commend the preschool special education staff. They have just been phenomenal. Thank you to the board and all the district personnel who supported it. It truly was a team effort in opening that building. So we were given clearance by the city to open the building the week prior. So the staff quickly moved in and set up their classrooms in basically a day and received the kids the following week. I have seen nothing but, well, I can tell they're smiling by looking at their eyes, but they do have their masks on. But the kids coming in are just thrilled. It really is geared towards young children. It feels like a preschool center. And it really has just been amazing to watch them. And kudos to the preschool staff because they have just done amazing. So I thank them publicly for that. We are currently just occupying the top floor of the building, so we are able to bring in 6 of our preschool classrooms. And then when the bottom floor is complete, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will start to migrate over the rest of our preschool program. We'll have only 3 more classes to bring over, as we do have a couple classes on distance learning right now. And additionally, just across the special education department and pupil services department, staff are continuing to support the reentry of students to school. Kids have just rolled with it. They've come back. They're excited to be there. We have hit a few bumps with children that need some additional assistance with mask tolerance and wearing, and the staff have just been remarkable in stepping in and supporting kids, working with families, and just really making it a comforting place to be. The kids are really thrilled to be back. And additionally, just working with Kathy O'Dowd, she has done an amazing job. I cannot thank her enough publicly. Kathy, I don't know what we'd do without you. The contact tracing, and really when we have to reach out to staff, because I've been working very closely with Kathy on that. Again, they're understanding. It's not ideal to get a phone call stating you need to be on quarantine, but they all are jumping in, whether it's the administrative team or the teachers saying, what can I do? How can I help? What can I do to help, contact families and support and so forth. So really, I just feel blessed to be, it's been a stressful time, but we just have a remarkable team supporting this effort, and proud to be part of it.
Thanks, Gal. And one thing, COVID challenged us in a lot of ways. One, a lot of deliveries didn't get to Granville, so we didn't know if we were going to open. And I called Joe Cavo, Mayor Cavo, his first week, and he did get work with the city and got the inspectors out and gave us a temporary CO. So I want to thank him publicly for that effort, because we were really worried about opening, and we wanted those youngsters with the smile in their eyes coming back. So I thank all of them.
Yes, thank you, Sal.
Yeah, well, thank you, and Bob, a phenomenal job. So I think for the board, we didn't just jump into the teaching and learning part. I think I've come to appreciate the work that our folks are doing. Christy threw out a term to you, the disruptive innovation. That's exactly it. You try to maintain what you're doing while you're doing something distinctly different. And that's sometimes very hard to manage. And I'm proud of my teachers, and I'm proud of my administrators for doing what we're doing. And we're bringing the kids back safely. We get the vaccinations done sooner. Then we'll have to look at that to get our kids back. One of the things I want the board to know, with the time frame that we have, like the day before yesterday, we didn't have to do an early dismissal because we get out a little early. If there's ever going to be a late a late start, doesn't work for us on any level, because you start 2 hours late, you bring people in for 45 minutes. So we'll probably wind up going DL. If we have to do an early dismissal, we can do that still, but late starts won't work for us at all. So with that, the reopening, we did have the PSATs, by the way, everyone. I think I heard 400 and some odd kids came in, so that did go very well on Tuesday. So next week we'll open up second semester with our high school. And at the next meeting, we'll talk about how that's going. So I thank everybody for their efforts, because we are happy that our kids are back. So thank you, Madam Chair. That's the entire report.
Thank you, Dr. Sal. Before Dr. Sal leaves, are there any questions from board members concerning any item that Dr. Sal has brought forth?
Yeah, I do, Mrs. Cooper. In the interest of reporting, is it possible that at the next board meeting we can have an update of the portrait of graduate, and where we stand with that and how it relates to the new educational process going on at the Matrix and whatever else is related to it? if you could squeeze it in, it would be of interest. Thank you.
For the board, okay. I think, I know I just signed up for another meeting for it. I'm gonna go over to Kevin and Kara. You think at the next board meeting, at the presentation, we can do a presentation? Would that work?
Yes, I mean, I could also do a quick update now, just to update the board on where we are, and and we could also do a presentation that also works.
I tend to think, considering the time, Kevin, let's do it, if possible, at the next meeting, okay? And if you can't, then, there's always a meeting after that.
No, that's fine, absolutely.
Okay, that's what we'll do, and that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sale. We'll move on to board chairperson report. Comments is all board members receive your committees, assignments, and PTO liaison and district committees. This is a working document. If there's any disagreement with what's in the document that you signed up or did not sign up for, we would just have a conversation about it. The next thing that I want to sort of bring to your attention is that as we move forward, we know that the PTO liaison is going to be a challenge right now. And Carol will be sending you out a list as to who the contact person will be for your particular school. So, we can have a discussion, a side discussion about that later. If anyone wants to have a discussion with me, you can just text me or call me, and I'll be willing to sit down and talk with you about it. Are there any board reports or committee report at this time, or comments at this time?
I do have a couple things.
Yes,
I have a comment too.
Madam
yes,
Chair.
Amy.
Oh, me?
Yes, Amy.
Gladys, I wasn't sure how we left the conversation about the finance workshop, but I just would like to say that I really think it's important that we can all work together and have the workshop so we can understand it, and then, therefore support the budget. And I know it's kind of rushed, but I think it's really important that we have that workshop. And even if that—
I agree with you. I'm going to have a discussion with Mr. Janelle. Some other things I want to work out with him before we decide. Okay. We have until tomorrow to get it out. I have to have a discussion about some other things before we go into having and making a workshop. I had a problem with making it a workshop. My concern, I'll share it with Mr. Janella, to make sure that everyone that's on that committee is involved and will be able to participate, whether we have a committee meeting or a workshop.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a couple of comments. Sites and facilities meeting for next Wednesday. Because, my opinion, because the board has sort of been circumvented from the committee, I would like to see that with consultants, with the mayor and Mr. Boughton now and the superintendent. I would like to see that sites and facilities subcommittee meeting turned into a workshop, so more of a board can have a voice as to what's going on rather than just have to sit on the sidelines. And number two, as far as choice for students, from the 50,000 foot level, I see that as a win, as long as it's applied equitably, because the student could, if they so choose, can have a different educational experience in another district. And the win on both ways is a smaller classroom size. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do, Rachel.
Yes.
Something that came out of one of our citywide PTO meetings was a question regarding summer school. And I don't know if this kind of entails what Kara was talking about, where our students are at academically. But they were wondering, will the threshold be expanded for summer school, for, an invitation for summer school And will it be offered at all levels? And can students, if they, feel, if they didn't meet that threshold, could they opt to take and pay for courses over the summer?
So, we've been talking about summer school. There are some unknowns about whether or not we'll still be in this same situation in terms of whether or not we need to hybrid socially distance, how many students we can have in a room. There's a little bit still of the unknown of also probably big unknown about availability of staff. Mm-hmm. Staff come on a voluntary basis to teach summer school. And so that would have to be, part of the factor. But, we will always offer to, our legal requirements in terms of students who are substantially deficient. We were able last year, which I thought was great, because it was virtual, we were able to expand our offerings quite a bit. So I believe we had over 900 students in just the K-5 summer school alone. That was quite an operation last year, but because it was virtual, we were able to accomplish a lot, and it was quite successful. So, we will have to look at a variety of options that could take different scenarios in mind to maximize, and expand as much as we can to learners. Again, it's going to depend on our community conditions, what's allowable, available resources in terms of human capital, and along those lines. So, we're looking at it, we're on it, and you can guarantee we'll do our very best with it. And we want to see our kids get everything that they can over the summer as much as anybody else does.
Yeah, we'll be back with that. My dream has always been that our youngsters would come and take elective summer school just to experience it, particularly at the secondary. So that has been there, will continue. The challenge the board's going to have, quite frankly, we put a lot of money into that summer school. Depends on what happens with the budget. Let's be frank. The money coming from the Corps' money, we're going to get some information on. We're hoping. You think they would say, look, this should be used to mitigate any learning loss. That would be a great revelation for them to do, right? So that could be added resources. So the timing is perfect. We're looking at who we're going to invite in, but I sort of hinted a little bit before. This vaccine is going to make a big difference in terms of being ready. And then you're going to have to get the staff that's going to teach it. And I will tell you, we've been challenged in the past to have enough staff come in and work during the summer when we didn't have the virus. So, it's going to be a challenge, but it's on for us to deal with, and we will deal with it. And I hope that, as Kara said, it might be some kind of a blend, and we have enough resources to get to the youngsters that want to make that commitment. That would be a wonderful thing. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, Dr. Sapp? Seeing none, thank you all for participating tonight. And once we get everything set up about the workshop, the finance workshop, we will have Carol send that information out to everyone, okay? If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Mrs. Silver. Okay, can I hear everyone say good night?